Say again, thank you so much for coming. We are so happy to see you. My name is Stephanie Plunkett. I'm Deputy Director and Chief Curator here at the Norman Rockwell Museum, and we're very excited to welcome you to another wonderful Tuesday evening, which is part of our summer series inspired by the Norman Rockwell Museum's 50th anniversary and 50th anniversary exhibitions. And in particular, tonight's program is going to be quite wonderful. We created it in conjunction with our show called Woodstock to the Moon, 1969 Illustrated. And of course, many of you may know that the Rockwell Museum began in 1969. So it had this great confluence with the Summer of Love and the Woodstock concert. And we have two extremely special guests tonight to share the story of Woodstock in very personal and unique ways. So I'd love to introduce them to you now, and I'm going to introduce both of our wonderful guests, and then at the end of the program, they will be up here at the front talking together. That'll be fun. Wade Lawrence, to my right, is the founding museum director and senior curator at the museum at Bethel Woods. He earned his MA in Early American Culture from the University of Delaware's prestigious Winterthur program and his BA in Art History from the University of Minnesota. He has been a student of American popular culture all his life and grew up in New Orleans and Memphis during the tumultuous 1960s, witnessing many of the societal changes that occurred at that time. In 2008, Wade opened the Bethel Woods Museum on the site of the historic 1969 Woodstock Music and Art Fair. And he is responsible for all aspects of the institution's ongoing work. Through video, interactives, and artifacts, Bethel Woods' main exhibit places the Woodstock Festival into the context of the entire 1960s. The many special exhibitions that Wade has organized focus on politics, popular culture, and social history, and of course, the music of the 1960s. On view right now at the museum, and I just completely can't say enough great things about this museum, is a show called We Are Golden, an exhibition examining what the youth of 1969 hoped for in the world at that time, and also how perspectives have changed in the way that we think about things today. Wade also writes, if you're a 1960s popular culture fan, a really wonderful blog called Woodstock, Peace and Music, which focuses on the music culture of the 1960s and many of the fascinating personalities and talented musicians of that moment. If you haven't been there, I know that you would enjoy it. The Bethel Woods Museum is part of the larger Bethel Woods Center for the Arts, which includes a 16,000 capacity outdoor performance space, and it is located on the authentic Woodstock site. Their weekend of concerts, programs, and events commemorating the 50th anniversary of the concert is coming up starting on Thursday, August 15th, and so we're extremely thankful to Wade for being here. He says his phone and his email has not stopped even for 1 minute. So he's got a lot of exciting stuff coming up there at Bethel Woods. Actually, to my right, your left, is something that is probably undeniably the most famous piece of music-related art perhaps ever created, and that is the Woodstock poster. The legendary image of a bird perched on the neck of a guitar has become one of the images that defined the entire Woodstock nation. We are truly honored to have the poster's creator, Arnold Skolnick, who is here in the front, with us this evening to talk about his experience creating the poster. Born in Brooklyn, New York, Arnold attended the High School of Music and Art and Pratt Institute, and he entered the world of advertising and graphic design at the famous New York firm Young and Rubicam, where his work garnered many awards. Arnold eventually turned to book publishing, establishing Imago Imprint, which actually was his own publishing company, and he has also worked on projects with a wide range of other companies, including Pomegranate, Down East Book, books, Rizzoli, first glance books, and chronicle books. Over the years, Arnold's drawings and paintings and photography have been widely exhibited at galleries in Massachusetts and in New York. Later in the program, we will look forward to inviting Arnold up to talk about his extraordinary work. And if you look at the two posters that are actually on the easels, you're going to notice there's a little bit of a difference between them, and I'm not saying what it is. Arnold is going to tell you that later, okay? And with that, we're so honored to have our special guest. Thank you, Wade Lawrence, who's going to begin the program. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a great pleasure to be here at the Norman Rockwell Museum and to see such a wonderful group of people that are here for the right reasons to learn more, expand your horizons. I also want to acknowledge Arnold. It's so good to see you again, Arnold. So I'm glad that you're here to support this. I'll start off with a little video. This is from 2008.
Good morning. I'm Charles Osgood, and this is Sunday Morning.
While the legend has grown for the past 39 years, the field on what was Max Yasgur's farm remained largely unrecognized and unheralded.
But for the longest time, this was the only marker of any kind.
Before this was even here, it was just an empty field. And people would find it, stop at the filling station. Hey, man, where was the Woodstock site? Well, you go up here and make a left, man. You can't miss it. I refer to it as the tomb of the unknown hippie because it looks more like a grave than it does a monument, but it served its purpose.
Until now. On the hill where crowds once sat listening to Hendrix, Joplin, and the rest, now sits the museum at Bethel Woods. Opening June 2nd, it just might put Woodstock back on the map.
The concept started off to commemorate the Woodstock Festival because that's where we're located. But it soon became obvious that this was about more than just a rock festival. It was about the entire decade that created it.
Wade Lawrence is the museum's curator.
As we discuss the music, we also bring in the politics. The social unrest, the civil rights movement.
It's a state-of-the-art, interactive, audio-visual feast.
In 9 minutes, you experience the full 3 days of the festival from the audience perspective. The only thing that's missing is the mud.
And the smell.
A magical mystery tour of a bygone era, transportation included.
Some genius came up with the idea, projected on the windshield.
Right.
And so the movie tells the story of getting to Woodstock by thumb, by motorcycle, by helicopter.
I don't know if you know it or not, but our county is the second most depressed county in New York State.
The museum is here thanks to one man, Alan Geary, a local boy who started out as a TV repairman and ended up creating a cable television empire, which he sold to Time Warner for $2.5 billion.
Hopefully this is a turning point in our community and our county. Thanks very much.
In 2006, he poured some of that money into the Bethel Woods Center for Performing Arts. The museum is phase 2 of what he hopes will become a tourist mecca.
You're a former Marine, you're a Republican.
Right.
Your resume doesn't suggest you'd be the guy to turn Woodstock into a museum.
Yeah. But it doesn't preclude the fact that we grew up here and the county was hurting and things had to be done.
You've made a huge personal investment in this.
Yes, I have.
I mean, it's tens of millions of dollars?
A little bit more than that.
Hundreds of millions.
It approaches $100 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all of that
Double
because you
that.
just wanted to see this county come back.
That's absolutely right. I think that without getting corny, I owe it. I owe it to these people.
Do you think it's important that there's a museum here?
Well, I think it's, I don't call it a museum.
What do you call it?
I call it a time machine, man. I mean, it's a time machine. You go through that museum, whether you were at this event or whether you weren't even born yet, you've been to Woodstock.
So how did Woodstock happen? In the spring of 1969, two young men got together and decided, let's build a recording studio in the town of Woodstock, New York. Many of you have probably been to Woodstock. It's not that far from here. Michael Lang, he had just moved to Woodstock from Miami, where he owned a head shop. The rumor is that the police shut him down. And Artie Kornfeld, the youngest record producer, the youngest vice president of any record company at the time. He was the head of rock and roll music at Capitol Records. They got together, decided, let's build a recording studio in Woodstock because that's where Bob Dylan was, Janis Joplin, Van Morrison, Richie Havens, a number of people were there because it was a bohemian community all through the 20th century, and by 1969, a lot of musicians lived there. Entered their two financial partners, Joel Rosenman and John Roberts, and they started talking about this idea. They looked at the proposal. They said, you know, we've already done a recording studio. We have no interest in doing that. We don't even know if the one we've already done is going to succeed. But we like this idea in your proposal of having a concert, having a party when you open this thing, and inviting all the local musicians to participate. We like this idea of maybe Bob Dylan doing a concert for us. So let's do a festival. Enter Woodstock Ventures. They formed a company, a partnership, and started looking for a site to hold their festival. Now, on this map, in Woodstock, Wallkill, the idea for having that festival in Woodstock didn't last very long because there just wasn't a space large enough. They talked to some people. They could get maybe 50 acres, but they knew they needed a lot more than 50 acres. So they went to Saugerties just down the road, almost struck a deal for a site there, and the owner of the property backed out. So John Roberts and Joel Rosenman found an industrial park in Wallkill, I guess it's about 60 miles, 50 miles south of Woodstock. They signed a contract with Howard Mills. They started advertising their concert, started selling tickets, started constructing the stage, the fence, the ticket booths, art installations, and this is the poster that they commissioned. David Edward Byrd was the house artist for the Fillmore East. And he did concert posters and programs for the Fillmore East. And the poster he came up with for an Aquarian exposition was very much in the style of rock posters of 1969. Very ornate, kind of psychedelic. Nudity was pretty common in rock posters at the time. But, you know, the organizers looked at it and said, you know, it's not exactly what we want. There's some shopkeepers that are not going to show this because of the full frontal nudity. And where do we put the band names? So that's when they decided to bring in, actually this is out of order, but they brought in Arnold Skolnick to design a new logo and design a new poster. And he came up with this idea over the weekend. He'll tell you more about this, but it was he'd been drawing catbirds at his home in Long Island, and he originally put it on a flute on a blue background. The flute really didn't say much. It's just a straight line, so he substituted a guitar and a hand. And he was just about to bring it in to show it to Woodstock Ventures when at the last minute he changed the blue background to a red background. At any rate, he designed that poster to replace David Bird's poster to sell the Wallkill site. And about 4 weeks before the festival was to happen on August 15th, the town of Wallkill changed their laws and made it impossible to have the festival in Wallkill. One of the rules was the sound emitted from the festival could not extend more than 10 feet beyond the property line. That kind of made it impossible. The writing was on the wall, and Woodstock Ventures found another place in Bethel, New York. So you can see the triangle made by the three towns, and that's about 65 miles. But Woodstock, Wallkill, Bethel, they changed the name to White Lake, which is the nearest village to the town of Bethel, because they kind of liked things that started with W. Who knows? Arnold Skolnick, the farmer, Max Yasgur, it was his land that they found, and he was probably he had the largest dairy operation in Sullivan County at the time, famous for his chocolate milk. And to this day, people still wax poetic about Max's chocolate milk. But he ran tours of his dairy barn. He was very proud of his operation. And when he was approached, he said, "Sure, I'll lease you one of my hay fields for your festival." And he leased them 600 acres, 300 contiguous acres and another 300 acres that were scattered around the county. And the poster that Arnold designed for White Lake, Arnold will tell you more about that, but it really did become the icon. And actually, it's more than just an icon, more than just a recognizable symbol of the 60s. I see this as a turning point in the way rock festivals were marketed. Before Woodstock, free concerts were the thing. I mean, the Grateful Dead would show up in the park and play a concert, and that was the music, that was the concert. The festival posters were psychedelic. It was even an asset if you couldn't read the lettering. Arnold came up with a brand, an identity, a Nike swoosh, and that changed music festivals forever. It corporatized music festivals. Woodstock also was the beginning of the really large super concerts, the stadium tours. Everything changed after Woodstock, and Arnold's design contributed significantly to that change. Not all of Max Yasgur's neighbors were happy about Woodstock coming. Now some said, "Welcome Woodstockers." Ken Van Loan at his garage hand-painted 2 of these signs. The Monticello Welcomes Aquarian Music Festival was the local business persons association. They'd put those in the store windows. But Max's next-door neighbor was not particularly pleased at the prospect of, as he said, 150,000 hippies here. Turned out he should have feared a lot more than that. 150,000, that would have been easy to handle. It turned out to be 500,000. And the people did come. The festival organizers had less than a month, about 3.5 weeks, to move everything they constructed at Wallkill to Bethel, to White Lake. Construct the stage, the towers, the fence, all the ancillary facilities, bring in the power, bring in telephone lines, drill wells, do water purification, create trails in the woods. Everything had to be done from scratch in 3.5 weeks. And by Wednesday, the people started coming in large numbers and settling on the field for the concert that was supposed to start on Friday. By Thursday, the roads were starting to get congested, and there were probably 50,000 people on the hill the day before the festival is to start. And of course, Woodstock Ventures crews are still building the stage. had not completed the fences, hadn't even installed the ticket booths, so a decision had to be made. Do we escort all those 50,000 people off the field and then ticket them as they return? Not going to happen. They knew that they'd have problems if they even tried to enforce ticket taking, so they declared it a free festival. The neighbors in Monticello and White Lake and the neighboring communities came out to watch the hippies. Bethel is in the middle of the Borscht Belt. There's bungalow colonies everywhere, and there were a large Jewish population from Brooklyn spent the summer in Sullivan County, and a lot of the locals had never seen anything like this before. Kids walking down the streets themselves, the Highway 17B was a parking lot for 10 miles in both directions. And an aerial view of the crowd showing the stage, and the crowd goes significantly further to the left and up to the top of the frame. In fact, from the stage area, you could walk a mile in any direction and probably have wall-to-wall people. So when they look at this crowd and say, well, that field's not big enough for 500,000 people, put a 1 mile radius circle with the stage at the center, that will hold 500,000 people, and did. Another view. This is West Shore Road that still exists today, and the monument that you saw Duke referring to as the Tomb of the Unknown Hippie is down here. The museum is built up here, and you can notice a diagonal and a straight up and down, a vertical. That's a Ferris wheel and a paratrooper ride that no one remembers. I've asked all of the living promoters of the festival, all the crew, hundreds of attendees, band members. Nobody remembers a Ferris wheel or a paratrooper. But we've got much photographic evidence that shows it in context. So the thing is, it was only there for a day. The police ran them off because they didn't have the proper permits. Even then, the man was in your face. A view of, this is an aerial view of the property. 17B, that was the parking lot, and Filipinis Pond, which is where the water source was, and also the swimming hole. Ponder that a moment. The orange line is the approximate footprint of the festival itself, and that's actually our National Register boundaries today. This was secondary camping. It was a hillside completely filled. This was primary camping here. And these woods right here will come into play in a later slide. When I mentioned the Bindi Bazaar, these woods separated the concert field where the stage was right here, separated the concert field from where the hog farm commune set up their camp. And there were trails through the woods. I mentioned the hog farm. This is Hugh Romney. He didn't get his nickname until 2 weeks after Woodstock. B.B. King ran into Hugh at the Texas International Pop Festival and gave him the name, does anyone know what the name might be? Wavy Gravy. So he was the head of the hog farm. This is the hog farmers arriving at JFK Airport in a chartered jet from New Mexico to come to the Woodstock Festival to set up the campgrounds, cut the trails through the woods, and to generally set the vibe as peaceful. They were also known for knowing how to handle bad drug trips, bad acid trips. And the promoters fully expected that a lot of the attendees were going to be smoking a lot of marijuana and doing a lot of LSD. So the hog farmers had experience with that and told the local medical people the evils of shooting Thorazine into someone's body while they're tripping, and it's much better to talk them down, calm them down when they get a little bit more sane, they can help the next wave of people coming in with the same problem. The Bindi Bazaar, as I mentioned, was the wooded area, but it was also a place for commerce. There were 20 vendor booths set up. And on the sign, which we don't know the designer of the sign, but we do know that Alton Kelly and Stanley Mouse were at Woodstock. Alton Kelly had set up a print shop and did a lot of silk screening for hog farm armbands and directional signage, informational signage around the site. So it's very likely that this was designed by Alton Kelly or Stanley Mouse, or the two of them together. But it shows a map there of the Bindi Bazaar with the network of trails that Bethel Woods just this spring opened the first run of restored trails. And within the next year or two, we'll have the whole system restored for public use. Famous picture by Baron Wolman from Rolling Stone magazine, Groovy Way, General Path Highway. This is one of the trails. This is one of the trails in the Bindi Bazaar. And on our restored trails, we have reproduction signs of those signs. We actually have one of the original signs on display in the museum as well. One of the vending booths, there were 20 of these. And the hog farmers, when they cut the trails, they also laid out stones in footprint, in squares, to show the vendors where to set up their booths. Those rocks are still in place, and we've located we found the location of all 20 of the booths from the stone foundations. That wasn't the only commerce, though. Food for love. I love that. It sounds kind of like a barter system. Food for love. The organizers approached Nathan's and Aramark and other food vendors. None of them were interested, especially after the festival got moved from Wallkill to Bethel. But Food for Love was basically two local guys that formed a company specifically for the festival. And they set up these food booths with wonderful Indian mirror cloth tapestries in the gable ends of these structures. We have one of those tapestries on display in our We Are Golden exhibit now, and we have the original design sketches for these booths. Of course, didn't do much good. They ran out of food Friday night. And the traffic was so bad, trucks could not get through to resupply them. An aerial view of the hog farm. That over there is an edge of that Bindi Bazaar wood, and this is the hog farm encampment. Over here is a glimpse of the free stage, and Ken Kesey's Merry Pranksters were at Woodstock. Ken was not there. Ken Babbs was with the Merry Pranksters at Woodstock, but they brought further, the famous bus from Tom Wolfe's Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. And these tents here were hog farm tents, and these are the structures for the free kitchen, and they fed people free through the entire 3 to 4 days of the festival. Very healthy food, bulgur wheat and granola and anything that they could find that was fresh. They just cooked up large garbage bins full of the food and handed it out for free. Probably a lot of the young people in the audience, it was their first taste of granola. Here's one of the booths, and another. And it wasn't just food you could get at the free kitchen. If you look at the far left, you can see someone enjoying some hashish. I'm shocked that there were drugs at Woodstock. And this was a dairy farm. Just on the other side of the hog farm, there are cows just hanging out. After the festival, the organizers had to pay off an awful lot of damages to local businesses, people whose livelihoods were affected by the traffic and the masses of people. And some of the and one of the stories that we know is true is farmers couldn't get their milk to market, so they were dumping their milk. But one of the stories that's probably apocryphal, but there were some farmers that claimed that their cows refused to give milk after the festival because they were traumatized. I guess they wanted the Grateful Dead to play a little longer. And of course, there were helicopters because the traffic made it impossible for the bands to get to the festival by car or by bus. So over 20 helicopters were leased for the festival from various sources to bring food, medical supplies, and band members and equipment to the site. This particular helicopter, if you notice, it is military. Imagine in 1969, at the height of the Vietnam War, a bunch of young people who were very counterculture, seeing military helicopters flying overhead. It would have been very shocking. And John Morris from the stage, he was one of the festival producers, had to reassure everyone, they are with us, man, they're not against us. They're here to help us, they're bringing medical supplies. And then there was a big roaring applause because of the help that they were getting. So that was an interesting tidbit as well. The gentleman at the left is an RN helping to bandage a toe. Cut feet was the #1 medical problem at Woodstock. They treated 0 cases of human-on-human injury. There were, in other words, no fights. There were no fights that required any medical attention. Lots of cut feet, broken bones, several miscarriages, 2 births. One child was born on a car on the highway on the way to the festival. And just this past year, we talked to the medevac pilot who said, yes, there was a woman who was in labor that I took to the Monticello Hospital, and she gave birth at the hospital. But there were no births at the festival itself. We've got numerous reports of people who were conceived at the festival. We can't prove that. Both of these are Baron Woolman photos. What a sweetheart. He was the first head photographer of Rolling Stone. He donated 100 of his Woodstock photos to the museum. These are 2 of them. I love the sign, no soaping, shitting, pissing, swimming, etc. in the drinking water, or you might come down with the shits. Try further that way. They did have water purification, and they did sink 6 wells. And I just found out from the head of logistics who drilled those wells just this past weekend. He told me that the water from the wells and the water from the lake were all funneled to a water purification system and then stored in a giant tank that was gravity fed to all the places where water was needed. So he said no one knew whether they were drinking lake water or well water. Comforting. There was sanitation at Woodstock, but not enough. There were not nearly enough. They did a calculation for how many porta-johns they would need. A guy actually went to the Port Authority and did a calculation for how long everybody went into the bathroom and needed to stay in there. So they figured some astronomical number of porta-johns they would need for 100,000 people. That's what they were planning on. They had to undersize for that, and then they got 5 times that many people. And the trucks that empty these things several times a day couldn't get through the traffic to empty them. I love this photo, though, because the guy in the sport coat and the dress shoes carrying a suitcase. What? And he takes it to the bathroom with him? I don't know. And this is how people got their drinking water. And by the time everybody had been rained on for 3 days and had slid through the mud, taking off your clothes and taking a dip in the pond just wasn't a big deal. Everybody did it. I say everybody. Everybody didn't do it. A lot of people did it. And some people didn't need water. There were naked people wandering around the festival grounds. Usually they gave them a wide berth. I don't think this guy on the tower really had much room to get away from the naked guy. And of course, This woman appears in an awful lot of the photographs and the movie Woodstock. She was really enjoying the festival, and one of my favorite parts in the movie is she's watching Jimi Hendrix, and she does this broad grin, sparkling eyes, and she just, and you know exactly what she means. Yeah, this is great. And of course, the film crew was everywhere. Movie where Max Yasgur's on stage. I'm a farmer, and I don't know how to talk to 20 people, much less a crowd like this. You've proven something to the world that 500,000 kids can get together and have 3 days of love and music and have nothing but love and music, and I God bless you for it. Joe Cocker took the stage right after that, and then as Joe Cocker was finishing his last song, before he had a chance to do his encore, the sky opened up and it rained for 5 hours. And that's when the rain chant, no rain, no rain, that's when the mudslide happened. Instead of it causing a panic, everybody just took it in stride. A lot of people left, but the people who stayed took it in stride and were living in the moment. Hello? Oh, there. Santana had already recorded their first album, but it hadn't been released yet. The only people that knew who they were people who lived on the West Coast and had seen them at the Fillmore in San Francisco or some other venues out there. But they had a good local following on the West Coast, but nobody out here had ever heard of them. And of course, Woodstock made their A lot of people in the audience didn't like Janis Joplin's performance at Woodstock. She had left Big Brother and the Holding Company. That's what they came to see. They wanted to see Ball and Chain and Piece of My Heart. And here she comes on with a horn section. It's a more of a boogie blues band than a psychedelic rock band. But she really put on one heck of a performance. And speaking of Wow. Like Janice, he had just dumped his band, and he was performing with a band that he loosely called Gypsy Sun and Rainbows, and it was basically an old Army buddy, a couple of old Army buddies, a guy he met in the village that played conga, and then his drummer from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. They only had a few days of practice. They had a house up in Woodstock, and they jammed for a while. But a lot of the performance, it was just Jimmy playing what he felt like playing and the band trying to keep up. After the festival, it was basically a disaster area. It took 3 weeks to clean the field up. Some attendees refused to leave. They picked up trash bags and started collecting trash and stayed there for days. They didn't want to leave. But I want to point out this tree. I don't even have to point, that tree. We refer to it as the tree or the message tree, and you notice there's nothing of any height anywhere around it. In 1969, that was the landmark, and that's at the bottom of the hill. The stage is off that way, and the museum is up the hill that way today. And that tree, there was an information booth next to it, and the booth and the tree became a place where people would tack their messages. I need a ride to Boston. I'm trying to reconnect with my friends. My favorite is a paper plate that says, "To the girl with the dark hair and the sister, I was too untogether to ask for your name. Please call me at this number when you get home." I wonder how many calls he got. And we have that paper plate along with several others that were taken from the message tree. So the message tree became a very important symbol of the site, of the place at Woodstock. It's in so many pictures. It's a landmark that you can see in almost every picture. It's dying. It was a mature tree in 1969. 50 years later, it has hollow spots. It's lost some branches. It's no longer making seeds, and we will lose it probably in 5 to 10 years. But you know what? There's hope. We worked with an arborist who was connected with the 9/11 survivor trees, and he has taken clippings from the tree. First off, we tried to root the clippings, but they wouldn't take root. Then he grafted the clippings onto rootstock. Those thrived. Those trees now are about so tall. And he's taken clippings from those, and they have taken root. So we already have several little baby message trees that are 100% genetically identical to the mother tree that we'll be able to replace that tree with at the proper time. We'll probably leave the trunk of the tree up because there's still nails and staples in the tree trunk from those notes. It tells a story all its own. This is a fun job. We did a cultural landscape report in 2015, and of course we used the message tree as the cover photo, but it gave us the plan for preserving the site. And here's our arborist with 2 of the grafted trees. They're significantly taller than that and much bushier. In 2017, the site was listed on the National Register. This is a view looking up the hill at the museum. The stage was over here, and an interior view of one of our permanent exhibits. But we also do special exhibits. This is this year's special exhibit, We Are Golden. You can see in the background a motorcycle, and right in here, there's a vest. If you've seen the movie or if you've seen the pictures, Michael Lang rode that motorcycle all over the site during the 4 days of Woodstock and wore that vest without a shirt on through the entire festival. And Michael loaned us the motorcycle and the vest. And of course, you see the 150,000 hippies not welcome here sign as well. We had a lot of help. Students from RIT designed some kiosks, and we had two separate kiosks. One was oral histories with young people of 1969, what were their hopes, fears, dreams, and at the other end of the exhibit, what are today's young people, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, what do they hope for, what do they fear? And it's striking how similar the hopes, fears, and aspirations are, but it's also interesting the way those feelings have evolved. And we see the Woodstock Festival as sort of a bridge between those generations. We think that there's inspiration to be had for young people today looking at what happened 50 years ago. So that's the end of the talk. I think we'll bring Arnold up and have a conversation with Arnold Skolnick.
His name is Ty Porter, who's an architect, and he designed the Lime Tree Hotel on St. Thomas. And John Morris was picked to do the acts, the entertainment for this hotel in St. Thomas. And he's a friend of mine. And what he did, and I'll read the thing to you. One of the architects of the Lime Tree was Ty Porter, one of my best friends. Ty's a connection to Morris. I was asked to design the logo for the Lime Tree that would be on cards, matchbooks, and later I was told that my design won an award. And here's the...
Right, Dad, behind you. I put it up.
Okay. The Woodstock people hired John Morris to facilitate obtaining big name acts for the festival. It was through this connection that I was asked at the last minute to design a poster for them. There was a poster previously commissioned by David Bird, you think you saw it here, to advertise the upcoming festival. John Morris showed me the original poster, which read the Aquarian Exposition. I had no idea what that was about. And it had images of blue cherubs and multicolored arrows and spears surrounded by a classical nude woman in the center holding a large Athenian vase. It had been rejected because it depicted nudity, which is crazy because the whole festival, they were nude in the whole festival. Morris asked if I could design a new poster and a brochure for a 3-day music and art fair which they were planning, and could I have it by Monday afternoon? This was Thursday. I said yes. I hired a writer, a friend of mine, his name was Ira Arnold, for the copy in the brochure, and together we came up with 3 days of piece of music. I decided to start with a catbird. A catbird is very fat bird. A dove is like a pigeon. It's not very exciting shape. Artists have anyway, we do a lot of crazy things. So I decided to start with the catbird, which I had been sketching on that previous weekend on Shelter Island, where my family was vacationing for the summer. I felt that a dove shape is narrow, like a pigeon. A catbird is round. I went with the round bird. I had seen a Matisse cut paper show recently and was thinking about it the whole time. I first cut out the bird with the razor blade, and I'd never done this before, cutting a paper. Usually I would draw everything or design everything, but I used the razor blade, and I continued cutting shapes out, holding the neck, the guitar neck. I cut out the bird standing on one leg, added the headstock, and the turning knobs. I went down to an art store and bought a red paper, which is the background, 24 by 36, which is the size of the poster. I made the guitar blue and green in order to have the colors vibrate when placed next to one another. They vibrate because they have the same intensity. To balance the white bird at the top of the poster, I decided to do the type white on the bottom right hand of the poster, so the whole thing would balance. So I added a screen with a little red for the hand, delivered it on Monday at about noon to the Woodstock planners. They loved it. Now I had to prepare the artwork for the printer, which is totally different today. If I had done it then, I had to do everything by hand then. It was 50 years ago. So How I did it is I had to place each color on a separate acetate and mark the acetate with crop marks, so it all line up. Some people know what that is. And so I had to take all the pieces from the layout and put it onto the acetate and indicate the colors. Rappaport Press, run by infamous Sidney Rappaport, did everything right except I made a mistake, as I forgot to mark the bird's beak black. Nobody's ever noticed on why the beak is red.
So Dad, so you also, one of the things about you doing this poster, which is interesting, is that you kind of hated rock and roll, hated drug culture, you hated the idea of giant festivals like that, and then you came along and did that. And you know, one of the things is that you didn't like the art that was current. So as Wade said, you could barely read, right, this typical psychedelic art.
Why do you think this poster became such an iconic symbol of the Woodstock Festival?
The design is perfect.
Was that a setup? From an art historical standpoint, it really is perfect because it's very graphic, simply reproduced. It reproduces at small size, large size, one color, multicolor, and it's a logo. And rock festivals didn't have logos before this. What you're referring to, several years ago, we did an exhibition at Bethel Woods that brought together Arnold and David Byrd for the first time. And it was a retrospective of both artists' work. And one section of the exhibit was all the knockoffs. There are, you know, you've seen them in the media. If you've got a guitar and a bird and something stock, it's going to advertise your event. And the one that caught my attention first, that got us into that knockoff section, a barbecue festival in Memphis used Arnold's design, and instead of a guitar, it was a barbecue fork, and instead of a bird, it was a pig. And the slogan was, "Just like Woodstock, but we smoke pork."
And then because I'm his son, and so I get, you know, people know about this and they send me stuff. So this is actually from someone's sorority in University of Indiana University, 100 years of sisterhood and love. And then this is a weird one. It seems to be spaghetti and a giant meatball. I don't know, on the guitar. Or a veggie burger, I guess. A meatless veggie burger. And then this is actually from last week, 2 weeks ago. No, this is not now. This is a previous one. Woodstock, 3 days of peace, rugs, music, and much more. And this is actually just from last week in Madison, Wisconsin, at Woodfest. But you could see they really took it to a different level. The bird.
And I think everybody by now knows that Charles Schulz named his bird character Woodstock after the festival. And they did a 30-year retrospective of Charles Schulz some time ago and used Arnold's design with Woodstock perched on the guitar neck instead of the dove, or instead of the catbird.
I got a couple of commissions, but it's hard to collect. So I said, forget it, I'm not going to do it anymore. You spend more time trying to collect the money than to do it.
Was it a turning point in your career in some way?
This? Yeah. My career is totally different. Than it doesn't have anything to do with rock and roll or anything else. I do serious painting and drawing.
Yeah, so he didn't do any more rock posters. This is the only one. He did a couple movies, posters in the 60s.
I designed, actually, the To Kill a Mockingbird. I did the ties to Kill a Mockingbird, but I never got credit for it. So I don't really like to talk about it.
You also did a book cover for Ralph Nader?
Yeah, about Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader, I went down to the publishing company one day. I used to do book jackets for them. And they said, Arnie, give us 5 minutes. We're having a meeting. I'll give you with you. Meanwhile, why don't you take a look at the layouts we have for a book that Ralph Nader just wrote. It's called What to Do with Your Bad Car. And I looked at it, and out of nowhere, like it just my voice said, just put a lemon on wheels. And it became the lemon law. So sometimes it happens that way.
And then actually Nader actually had him do his next book, which my father doesn't really remember, but he did the cover of it. This wasn't just about cars, but a book about Beware. And that's
the material that was used in glasses would burn sometimes from the sun.
There is a stamp. He had nothing to do with it. They didn't ask him about it. And in fact, when they did the series in 1999-2000, they did a series of all the decade stamps, if you remember that. They did include that there was actually at the bitter end a unveiling. He was not even invited. The Woodstock folks didn't even tell the stamp people about him. Of course, they could have looked it up in any way. They did no research to figure that out. So this is that was the unveiling of it in 1999. And this is the set, the 1960 set, and of it, besides the peace sign, is the most iconic thing that you see from the 60s. So yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it. The poster with 3 days of peace and music set a tone. Bringing in the hog farm to set the mood did it. Having the festival out in the country, away from the city. And I've actually heard the promoters saying, and this may have just been an inspiration from Arnold's poster, an after-the-fact thing, they saw it as 3 days of peace, not necessarily an absence of war, but getting away from the hustle and bustle of the city, getting out to the country, and having that natural experience rather than all the problems of modern society. But yeah, all of those contributed to it being peaceful.
I was at the festival one day, but some of the policemen, they were amazed that there was no fights. I mean, for in any city of 450,000 people, and nobody was fighting, nobody was cursing anybody, and I hope that because of the poster set the tone.
I've heard people refer to it as a contact nice. You've heard of contact high? Well, everybody was getting a contact nice. Bethel Woods is going full speed ahead with showing the Woodstock movie on the field on Thursday the 15th. Arlo Guthrie is the warm-up act for that. Wow. And then Friday is Ringo's All-Stars and Edgar Winter. And on Saturday is Santana. And on Sunday is John Fogerty. So we're going to have 4 evenings of really great concerts and events. And I think that's, for our generation, I think that's better than a festival.
Well, we'd like to thank these 2 amazing speakers for an incredible evening. So interesting, so meaningful, and thank you for your remarkable work, both of you. We're so happy that you all came. I want to let you know that there are just a few reproduction Woodstock posters in the museum store, which Arnold would be happy to sign. But it was such an honor to have you both with us, and we thank you so much for coming.